Hello, everyone. Welcome to the new Sleuthwood episode with my guest, Carrie Niblett. Did I say it right?
Yeah, not French or anything. Niblett.
It's such a cute name, I have to say.
Thank you.
And so Carrie is the author of one of my favorite books, which is The Curious Observer's Guide to Slime Molds of UC Santa Cruz and Beyond. But it's really good for Beyond because it's a thin book, but this is seriously my most referenced book when it comes to slime molds. It's on my desk right here next to my other slime mold books. But it's the one that I look at the most often because almost every single time I find a slime mold, it's not if the same species isn't in here, but it's like close. And I love this book. And it's out of print now.
It's out of print?
Isn't it?
No.
Is it still in print? So I looked at Amazon, I couldn't find it again.
Oh, I should check in on that. Not to my knowledge, but yeah, no, that's interesting to know. I will look into that.
Yeah, look into that because if it is out of print, then you need to get more.
I do, yeah.
Because it's a very, very good book.
Thank you so much.
I can geek out a little bit because, like I said, it's my most referenced book on my shelf aside from my new to bring book.
What's your new to bring book?
It's actually the new edition.
Ooh.
Yeah. So it was this one. And you see on my
yeah.
It was really out of date with all the old names because the new to brinks get changed a lot.
I noticed that.
Yeah.
It's a lot to keep up with.
Yes, and so that was a brand new edition that has all the new names, so now I don't have scribbles all over in it. So I wanted to ask you about your education history because you're not a scientist.
I'm not a scientist. I got a degree from UC Santa Cruz in environmental studies. At the time, they didn't offer environmental science. They now do, and I'm so happy for those people, but I got environmental studies. So that means I had no basic biology coursework, no chem series, no physics series. Those kind of big core science courses I never did. We kind of had our own environmental studies versions of them, like some chemistry stuff. But yeah, I really don't have a science background.
That's perfect because everybody on the show is somebody without a science background. So it shows what we can do. You can write a whole book like Julian the Lister without having a proper degree.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do now with your degree?
So I actually did work within my field up until COVID. I worked for state parks, and then I worked for a local marine kind of discovery place as a volunteer coordinator. And now I work for the UC. I'm back at UC Santa Cruz. And I recently got a new position as the grad program advisor for the MCD biology department.
Fun.
Yeah, and that was in April, so it's a pretty new job.
Okay.
And that's molecular, cellular, and developmental biology.
Wow, that's hardcore.
Yeah. But again, I'm very science adjacent, but and academia adjacent, which is interesting. But just
Yeah, that's fun. So I wanted to ask you before we really dive into slime molds. Obviously, you are a nature nerd, and I wanted to know how that has impacted your life. Like, were you always a nature nerd from childhood, or is it something recent, or how's it work out for you?
It's more recent, I guess, in my life. I didn't really grow up going on hikes. My parents aren't super outdoorsy. They're not super indoorsy, but didn't really go on a hike until I was maybe in third grade, and it was a class trip. And I actually distinctly remember going on a hike. Didn't camp. Always liked being outside, but was not a huge nerd about it. And then going to college at UC Santa Cruz, it's like it forced me into it. You're there in this beautiful campus in the redwoods, kind of finding yourself as a person in this amazing space. And I was just mesmerized. And kind of what got me hooked was we had this one really heavy rain winter. And I think every mushroom popped up at the exact same time. And you're just walking to school camp, like your classes. You're just walking around. You're seeing these incredible things. And I was like, I have to know what this is. And then kind of snowballed from there, I guess. I don't know about snowball. And then I also changed my major during that time to do environmental studies. Kind of had a curvy path, and I started out as computer science, which is kind of crazy to think about. I hated it a lot. I hated it, and I was like, well, I have to do this. I don't know. So really found a beautiful community of naturalists in my new major. I was able to do a field quarter where we went all over California for an entire quarter, just immersed in natural history, and that was such a cool experience. And it gave me a really nice community of nature nerds to nerd out with too.
That's such a fun story. And UC Santa Cruz, you have a lot of banana slugs, don't you?
It's our mascot.
That's right.
So
Right.
we got that one, and we have them all around. Yeah, it's really fun. You'll see them just walking to class between classes. They're just
That's fun.
Yeah.
I like your story because a lot of people come into it from childhood or as birds. With like birds are often a gateway into the wider world of nature. But yours was mushrooms, so that's really kind of fun.
Yeah, totally was. Yeah.
So how did you make your way from mushrooms to slime molds?
It was a pretty kind of natural progression. I feel like I was actually on a mushroom walk that was led by Christian Schwartz. I don't know if you know that name. He wrote Mushrooms of the Redwood Forest. I think him and Noah Siegel wrote that. And it's a really cool book. And he was a Santa Cruz alum. And he was leading a walk for us on campus. And he said casually about slime molds is like, if you really want to figure out something new, like look into slime molds. No one's really doing that. And there are people doing it, but it's a very small number of people. And that kind of sparked something in me, but at the same time, it was completely overwhelming. It was like, I'm learning so much about everything. And now there's this thing to learn about that we don't know that much about. I can't deal with that. I can't handle that. And I didn't really think about slime molds for a while after that, but it trickled up on me. This curiosity of what the heck is this thing really got to me. Yeah, I don't want to say snowballed again, but
well, snowballed into a book.
Yeah.
So how did the book come about then? I'm curious.
It was my senior exit project from my major, and there had been one woman before me, who wrote a spider guide, and I thought it was the coolest thing. She was a big nerd about spiders. She wrote about spiders on campus, and I was like, I think I could do that. I think I could. And it was a pretty hectic time to write it. I probably wrote it in 11 weeks, and I hope that doesn't show too much from the writing. I found some typos, and I have corrected them. But it was this kind of whirlwind of, I had been collecting information and taking lots of photos without any intention, just because I thought it was cool. And then I had this opportunity to like put this together. And it was edited by Alex Jones, who is the manager of the campus natural reserve. And he was an immense help too, just helping me put that together. So it came together fairly quickly. It was my senior, because you could have done a project or kind of take a seminar series, and I was going to do a project, of course.
That's a lot more fun.
It was so much fun. It was intense. When I talked to my roommates who I was living with at the time, they're like, we didn't see you.
So the slime molds in here, were you already familiar with them, or did you have to do a lot of research and then go look for them, or is it kind of both?
It was sort of formed around the ones I was seeing most frequently, because I figured, while I knew Santa Cruz really well and what I had been seeing in the past 2 or 3 years, I didn't know if that was going to be representative of what most people might see, because slime molds are really unique in that they don't really have geographic boundaries. So that's why I wrote it for UC Santa Cruz and beyond, because I knew what I was seeing here, you could see other places, but I didn't want to put any kind of, this is what you will see if you live in Tasmania or London or Santa Cruz or wherever. So the two kind of formed each other. And I think the more I think about it, I want to go back and add more species, because I think there's some really like key ones people see frequently that aren't in the book, and it would be really fun to include those.
What are a couple? I'm curious.
Ooh, now that you say that, I'm blanking.
Put you on the spot. We can come back to that if you want.
I'm thinking of all the common names are funny too. I don't know if I included like the raspberry tube slime.
I don't think so.
I don't think I did. That one comes to mind. That one comes to mind immediately, but I think there's a couple others that,
Mm-hmm.
or just sort of random ones I've seen on campus, maybe just once or twice, and I wanna slap them in there because you never know who might see it, who might come across it.
You could like triple the size of this book.
I really could,
Yeah,
yeah, I really could.
yeah. Go ahead and do that. I'd like that.
Okay,
yes,
I'll work on that.
yes, please, because yeah, I could definitely use a bigger book. Um,
One of the benefits of my job, which I haven't taken advantage of working in the biology department, is I think I could schmooze my way into some microscope access
ah,
because I would want to
yeah,
do microscopy for the
yeah.
species. Yeah. So I mean that's just kind of in the back of my head when I'm on my lunch break walks, and I'm just like, I could ask the right people and they could help me out. Like I know them.
Yeah, because it's tricky. A lot of the slime molds you have to actually look at the spores to identify the species.
You do, yeah, and that's I'm not great at microscopy. I probably was back then a lot better than I am now. So it would be something I would have to become reacquainted with and re-study on read the descriptions, and part of me wonders too how out of date the literature we do have on slime molds is, and how much kind of work there is to be done,
Yeah,
and not wanting to create more literature based on incorrect literature is kind of stressful and pretty big undertaking, but it's still something I
yeah,
would love to do.
yeah. Yes, please. um, so you have been tweeting this spring, even into the summer, about like this wild amount of slime mold you've been seeing, like really late into the season, which is really weird because our summers are hotter and drier. So it's a very strange phenomenon.
It is, yeah. We've had a really wet winter, and then that's led into really wet mornings here. We're getting a lot of like, it's not even just fog, it's like kind of morning sprinkles, and the fog really not burning off like we're used to. And I keep thinking about if this had been the year I was trying to write that book, it would have driven me crazy. I've seen all this cool stuff like up until July. But yeah, it is really unique, and I'm really grateful to be on campus and to have been in one space to recognize these differences, because I just think that's a really cool opportunity to have like with a space, especially one that I'm obligated to go to work.
Right, that's something I put in my new book, The Naturalist at Home, is like learning the language of nature, and part of that is knowing one place over time, not just like during one day, but like during months and years, and then that's
Yeah.
something that you get to do by working there and like using it for your personal kind of observatory.
Yeah, I'm really, really grateful. It's funny. Some of my favorite logs back when I was writing the book um, are not even logs anymore. They're just like, so I'm finding new slime mold spots. It's always changing as things are just decaying and rotting. Yeah, it's really fun.
That's fun. So the campus, I haven't actually been to UC Santa Cruz, but it sounds like it's got like you said, there's actual a nature reserve there or
Yes,
preserve.
and campus itself is a natural reserve, and then the UC has a bunch of reserves all over California. And these are dedicated spaces where people can go do research and field work and all kinds of stuff. And our campus itself is designated as one.
That's really cool because I went to University of Oregon and it does not have anything. It's just like traditional lawns and
Yeah.
quads and kind of boring campus habitat or lack of habitat, I guess. So that's really cool that you get to have that on your campus.
It's really special. Yeah, it's very unique. Yeah, we're in the redwood forest. You're not allowed to build any building on campus taller than the trees.
Oh wow!
And redwoods are tall, so
Right, right.
room there. But still, I think the idea was if you looked over our campus, from a bird's eye view, that there would be no massive structures.
Just see a lot of trees.
Yeah, they've also done some funny things to build around trees, like the parking structure I park in has this really crazy like curve you have to drive on, and I had no idea why until someone once told me. They're like, there's a stand of like a big stand of redwoods right there that they were navigating around to build this parking structure, and I do appreciate that. It's a little questionable to build a college campus in the middle of the forest on the one hand, but also it seems like it does have a pretty good relationship with
Yeah,
the nature.
that's neat. So when you find the logs, so we should go back. Slime molds grow on dead stuff. So they love
Yes.
logs and like rotting leaves and pretty much anything that's decaying. So logs are like a slime mold enthusiast gold mine. Um,
Yes.
but it's different because different slime molds will grow on different species of wood, and they'll grow on, some will grow on like the bark, some will grow on the wood. So it's very different. And I found like up here, I can't ever find a slime mold on the I'm drawing a blank now. The madrone, Pacific madrone trees. I never find slime molds on them. So it's interesting. So a lot of the trees that you have the logs for are probably redwoods, I'm assuming.
Redwoods, somewhat. We have a lot of Doug firs and some pine and oak and bay. I don't see them on redwoods that often.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've also never seen them on madrone like you or manzanita, as far as I know. I wonder if they're too acidic or something. I don't know much about those trees, but something about them feels acidic.
Yeah, and like the madrone trees don't have much bark either. But even on the wood, and the wood, like it seems like Pacific madrone trees take a long time to rot. Like they're hard for a long time too. So maybe that's part of it. But it's very interesting to watch the different. As if we can tell, sometimes they're too rotten to tell what kind of
Yeah.
trees they are. But it's interesting to see. And that's something that's not really been studied much either. Like what species of slime molds are on what species of dead trees and where they even grow. Because I know like there was one species that people thought were really rare, but once they started doing the moist chamber samples, they found that sample like everywhere.
Yeah. Or even ones that grow on, like, there's been some that allegedly grow on bryophytes specifically, or like live leaves. And I've heard that those are more common, at least the live alive leaves are like in tropical rainforests. You're likely to see those. And I don't think I've ever seen a slime mold growing on a live leaf. Maybe I have, but I don't nothing really particular comes to mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I have. I've only seen them on dead. And I know some grow on animal dung, like especially herbivore dung. So
I read about this one that was growing specifically. I think they've only ever found it on like goat poop. I gotta get into some poop or something. I don't know. What's up with that?
So there's an opportunity for some naturalists to go out there and study herbivore poop and see what slime molds are growing on, or collect it. You can even collect it and do a moist chamber study.
Also, I don't have a sense of smell, so I'm like, this could be my niche.
There's your calling.
Yeah, imagine that. What have I volunteered for?
You can be famous for knowing about slime molds and animal dung.
Someone has to.
Right. I mean, it's better than being famous for other things, which are kind of,
It's true.
Questionable. Yeah. We should go back though, because I'm thinking now that maybe not everybody watching knows what a slime mold is. I probably should have asked this at the beginning, but can you tell us like what is a slime mold?
Sure, yeah. Slime molds are these crazy creatures. They're technically protozoa, protists, and they're studied alongside mushrooms often by similar people because they're found in very similar environments. They have a really crazy life cycle. It's hard to start anywhere because it's a cycle, but one of their stages is the plasmodial stage, and this is when they're literally the slime. And this is the only time they consume their food or move. And that's kind of the same process, feeling both things. And they kind of pulse out. And they can detect food. There's been some really cool studies where they've put down maps. Like there's one of a map of Tokyo. And they have oats. I think it's oats on the subway stations. And the slime mold kind of, it's not like webbing. I can't think of the right kind of word of how it kind of fans out. That's a good word. And it actually mimicked the Tokyo subway system and found the fastest routes between each of those oat dots. So that's their plasmodial stage where they eat and move, have no brain, but they eat and move. And then they will mature by rising out of the slime into most often a stalk and a head. They can look a lot of different ways, but I'm going to say for the sake of keeping it simple, a stalk and a head. And this head is full of spores. So then wind, as it matures, wind or animals or things will brush these spores into the wind. And the spores will mature, do their not genetics thing, do a haploid diploid. I don't like to go all into that part because I really don't have a strong science background, but they eventually split and duplicate and duplicate and duplicate and become the Plasmodium again, Plasmodia, and do it all over again. And during their eating stage, they're eating mostly yeast and bacteria, which is why you find them on rotting logs.
Right, so they're not eating the wood itself.
No,
so they're actually eating the bacteria, which is interesting because that's something I didn't realize at first. I'm like, they just eat the wood, which I think, well, what about the wood? But
yeah.
So it's actually the bacteria and the yeast in the wood or the leaves or the animal dung or whatever else, which is very interesting. It's very interesting. So yeah, so that's cool. There's so many kinds.
There's so many. I mean, if you compare it to like beetles, though, there's not that many kinds. Right. I think there's like 900 that we know about, and you could have 900 of something, you know, like you could have 900 spoons and it wouldn't like ruin your life. Like you could actually learn the slime molds.
It's a number that we can actually put our head around, not like
flies
or something. Yeah.
Because I don't know the number. Someone else might know the number of beetles, but it's insane.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. But they're very diverse. Like you said, so most of them are like stalk and orb, but there's some that are just the sessile orbs. There's some that are like pretzels, which I still haven't seen yet.
I haven't seen it either. It's driving me crazy.
I'd love to see it. And there's some that like the I forget what it's called, but the one that is just like that pink flat mass.
Yes, yeah, flat pink mass, or the famous dog vomit slime. That's people's first slime mold. Kind of just like a lump, a pretty big lump often of yellow or white goop.
I said in my book that I think it looks more like shredded cheese. I think we should change the name because it's just rude.
I like that better too. Yeah, it is a bit rude, and it doesn't seem accurate either.
Yeah.
What dog?
I mean, have you seen dog puke?
Yeah, it's not really. Yeah,
it doesn't look like that.
The name kind of does capture people, though. It's kind of like, you know, it gets you.
Right. I like so I read about Juliana Lister, who's a British naturalist, in my book, my first book, Nature Obscura, and she called them mixies, you know, short for Myxomycetes. And I love that. I love mixies, and because like when I'm in the forest squatting down taking a picture, people are like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, taking pictures of slime molds. Oh, okay, and then they just walk off.
Yeah.
But if I'm like mixies, they're like, "What's a mixie?"
I like that. I should start using that. So I had one. I was squatting down in the woods on campus, and there's like kind of a bridge above me where cars can drive, people can walk, and someone shouts down, "What are you looking at?" And I say, "Slime molds." And they said, "What color are they?" I really liked that curiosity from above. Because usually, like you said, people just say, "Oh, okay," and then move on. But
yeah, it's not very often people actually stop and say, "Huh, what's that?"
Yeah.
And it's hard because people they like mushrooms. So mushrooms are easy to see. They're big and they're colorful, and you can eat them, some of them. Maybe not all of them. But slime molds are small, and they're really hard to find, and they're hard to show people unless you have like a magnifying glass or something to kind of blow them up like a camera. And you can't eat them, so people don't have quite the same interest.
One.
Well, yeah.
You should eat them. I can't advocate for that. Yeah, no, it doesn't have kind of the charisma that mushrooms tend to have. Yeah.
I think that's a problem with all small things, because a lot of things that I like are tiny, tardigrades and nudibranchs, and you show somebody this like little blob, and they're like, that's nice. And they're like, no, look at it.
It's crazy though.
So I think like describing it and like taking pictures of it and showing people what they look like in art form. Like, and have you seen Angela Melee's book?
No, I don't know if I have.
So she does artwork of slime molds, and her artwork is just like, it's just incredibly beautiful.
That is beautiful.
And so she's kind of like a modern Julia Lister, illustrating a lot of the slime molds, especially this one, which I still haven't seen, but I'd love to see.
I found some similar to those. They were really hard to capture the iridescence on camera, but so cool.
I saw them in, when I was doing my research, I had to go up to Canada to the museum to find a slime mold collection, and I saw them there, and they're like mind-blowing. They're like they're actually white. Like the stalks are actually white, and then the iridescent, and they're gorgeous.
How did they? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
How did they? Could they preserve them pretty well? Like, because
Mhm.
I started a small slime mold collection, and I found that they were really fragile, and they took a pretty bad beating just by existing in the museum. I would love to visit more slime mold collections. Oh my gosh, that'd be so cool.
There aren't many. Like when I started researching it, there were none because I am in Seattle and there's universities and we have like museums and stuff, but there's not none. There's not a single slime mold collection. There's one way east on the other half of the state in Spokane, and the other one is up in Vancouver.
Wow.
So I had to drive all the way to Vancouver to go see the slime molds. Um, but they, yeah, because I have a collection too, and it's, I have destroyed them by dropping them.
Yeah. Or even getting them from the field to wherever they're gonna
Yeah.
live is really rough.
Yeah, especially if they're still wet. Yeah, there's like, yeah, I have to go through a certain process. I have a like the craft box, like a plastic one that has the dividers in it, and when I collect them, I put them in those little dividers, and that gets them home safely. And then if they're wet, I have to, like, I put them in a box right away, and then I let them kind of air out until they're dry.
That's good.
And then I put them in I have a bunch of drawers, so I kind of keep them safe. But I've learned that when I do bring them home, I have to freeze them. Because if they have any of the fly larvae or beetle larvae in them, they will devour them. And then there'll be nothing left but dust.
That makes sense.
So I have to freeze them for a day or two, and then I let them air out. But it's kind of fun, because I wanted to ask you, too, about invertebrates, because like that's not been studied at all. Hardly at all. The interaction between invertebrates and slime molds. But when I freeze them, like you get these little miniature dioramas because the invertebrates will be frozen like in motion. So you'll see this fly larva just like sitting there on the slime mold or a springtail or something. And it's just I don't like killing them, of course, but it's just they're really cool, perfectly preserved little miniature diorama in a slime mold. And it's just something that's really interesting that hasn't been studied hardly at all.
No, it really hasn't. Yeah, the springtails, the little larvas, and the slime mold beetles. I don't know why I did that. That's what they're called. I think are the ones I most commonly see. And yeah, there's not much that we know about what's going on. Yeah.
What other invertebrates have you found interacting with the slime molds?
I've seen things like in proximity, I've seen a slug like kind of going through it, but I don't think the three I just listed, I think, are the ones who I've seen actually interacting with it, especially the slime mold beetles. I see those pretty frequently.
Do they eat the spores?
Yeah, they eat it and then they nest. I don't know if nest is the right word. They will like live in it too.
Okay. Do any invertebrates eat the plasmodiums that you know of?
Not that I know of. I've never seen it either. Things kind of leave it alone. Yeah. Even seemingly like avoid it, because I've never seen even a snail or a slug or something or other insects kind of passing through it.
I wonder why that is. It's interesting.
It's a great question. I need like a team of interns.
There's hardly any organisms that don't get attacked by invertebrates. Like, there's almost nothing.
Yeah.
And slime mold, like the plasmodiums, are super powerful because there's that Japanese guy whose name I forget that I told you about on Twitter, and he does studies of he puts things in a plasmodium, like in a tray with the plasmodium, and sees if the plasmodium will eat it. And like he's put like squid arms and octopus and tomatoes and just all these things, and almost every single time the plasmodium will eat it.
Whoa! I had no clue.
It's incredible. They'll eat like almost anything.
Oh, that's really crazy.
It's fascinating.
Kind of speechless.
There's he's tried different fungus, like different mushrooms and stuff, which I think is very poetic because a lot of the times slime molds will get ruined by fungus. So I'm like, yes, the slime molds are now ruined. Payback!
Yeah. Underdog.
So it's like the plasmodiums, like we know about them, like doing the transportation routes and like having a brain, and people have used them to make music and do all kinds of kind of artistic things, but like they're like really like a superhero. Like nothing eats them that we know of, and they eat almost everything.
That's wild. I wouldn't have guessed they would eat like food. I don't know why. I don't know what bias I had to make me think that, but that is so cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's like the whole. He's been doing it for a long time, and there's just a whole list of videos that he's got of like time lapse videos of the plasmodiums just slow. Sometimes like the tomatoes, they don't like the outside, but they'll go inside if there's a hole. Like they eat the the inner part of the tomato. So
Oh, that's
they
funny.
can be picky, but there's like very little that he's posted that they have not really gone for. So there's
That's
just
funny.
like so much to learn about slime mold still.
I have pet snails. They're just garden snails, and they're pickier than slime molds are. Really, those guys are picky.
That's not something you ever think about with snails, with garden snails.
No, no, yeah, they'll just be like, no, I don't want that. I need some pet slime molds. I'll get a slime mold in there, and then the slime mold can eat whatever the snails didn't.
I've been keeping pet slime molds, the plasmodiums, but they're really hard to keep. I've discovered. I thought they'd be easier because it's just like it's a slime mold, but the agar gets contaminated easily. So if you're not like, I wasn't careful at first, so they kept getting moldy, and I learned.
Yeah.
My microbiologist friend is gonna scoff at me, but I'm like, just throw some oats in there, right? That's all you gotta do. But it's not quite as simple as that. And then they grow out if you don't feed them enough.
Oh, they go hunting.
They go hunting and they'll like get all over your desk.
Oh my gosh, what a fun problem to have.
And then if you leave them too long, they'll dry out.
Yeah.
And then you'll have nothing left because they'll go. In fact, I've got one like right here because I've
But
got a whole stack.
they can jump back into action once they've been dried out.
Yeah, but mine go into that's if they. What's the word? It starts with an S.
Sclerotia.
Yes.
Sclerotium.
But mine go to plasmodium stage instead.
Oh.
And I don't know if you can see the black.
Yeah.
They're tiny on this this species, the one that we usually keep in the as pets, or have very tiny sporangia. So I'm not quite sure like what to do with that. Like here's one that's dried out, and it's all that.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know. I think they're sporangia. They're very tiny, so I have to put them under the microscope to check. But yeah, I have more that I can restart. But every time they die out again, I'm like, oh no. I'm going to have to start over again because they're hard to actually keep going for any length of time, which is surprising to me. But yeah, I've been trying on my paper towels to try not contaminate them as much, which works better, but they dry out faster. So yeah, it's kind of an ongoing experiment. This is another experiment.
Yeah, that's really fun though. I tried once and I had a similar experience where it didn't work out, and then I felt like kind of guilty. But I still have I think it went into sclerotium. It was some of the Leocarpus fragilis, which is the egg, what do they call it? Insect egg one.
Yeah.
And I still have it, and it's from 2017. And part of me is like, if I get good at this, maybe I can make that one bounce back into life. But I don't want to try and fail because my own thing and not its thing. So that's in the back of my head. I still have that. It's in a petri dish, kind of like taped shut. I think in a craft box at this point. I have it in like with glue and paintbrushing and stuff. So who knows what it's been through.
Well, the one I bought, they had cut it into tiny little pieces, so all you need is like a tiny little triangle to start it. So
of the agar, or
no, the sclerotia.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So you just put it in the agar, and then you just put that on top of it, and a few oats, and then it just amazing. It like just comes to life almost like within hours. It's just, I'm like, this little tiny thing. It's seriously small.
Yeah.
I'm just supposed to put that in there, and it just like, and yeah, it works, and it's like magic. I swear. I know it's science, but come on, it's magic.
It's magical. Did you buy it from like a science supply?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it was a whole kit. It had a whole set of petri dishes and agar in the bottles and like scalpels and everything. So now I'm like, scalpel. Because that's how you can divide it into new ones. Like if you have one growing, you can like make an infinite number of them. But the agar, of course, it runs out, and then if it gets contaminated, you have to throw it away. And I mean, it only lasts for like a week in one agar dish anyway, because the agar kind of dries out and the slime mold's not happy anymore. So yeah, they're more work than I anticipated.
I see sometimes online people will post a picture of their fish tank or terrarium and it'll have a slime mold growing in it. It's like, you have no idea how cool that is and how lucky you are. I think there's one called like aquarium slime mold, and it's this white plasmodia, and it's some lucky people just get it growing in. Yeah.
Wow, it like grows in the water?
Yeah, it'll grow in the aquarium. I've seen them in terrariums too, but it grows in the water.
Wow.
And that is something I have so much trouble wrapping my brain around, like aquatic slime molds. I know they're real, but again, feels like magic, feels fake. Crazy.
I like that. No, I like this. I think that's a great thing about naturalists and like non-scientists. Like we can still think of that like magical. Like I know it's science and all, but come on, it's like magic. It's that sense of and I think it's like really important to that sense of wonder too, retaining that sense of magic and amazement. So anyway, so I wanted to ask you a couple things about slime molds that you see regularly. Like what is for one is what is the most common one that you encounter?
Ooh, it feels seasonal, and then every year I feel like it kind of changes too. But one of the ones I see most regularly, kind of right around in our climate, January after the first big rains, are the coral slime mold. That white one, Ceratio microtreticulosa, I want to say. All these words I never say out loud.
I know.
It's hard. That one I would say is pretty common seasonally. I can guarantee I'm going to see that at least for a period right after the rains. And then the dog vomit one is sort of our common summer, spring one. Pretty much guaranteed to see that at some point in the summer, even in the heat of summer, like in August when you have no chance of seeing any other slime mold. Yeah, and then I feel like there's a bunch of the trachea ones, but they all look so similar. It's really hard to say if one of them is more common than the other. Like the little yellow trachea ones. Yeah, I'm trying to think of other common ones. Those two come to mind. But then I think about it seasonally, or even year to year, the one I put on the cover of my book, that one, it was like a weed that year. It was everywhere. It was blanketing everything. And I saw a post on a slime mold Facebook group from a guy in England, and it was everywhere for him too. And since then, I see it occasionally, but nothing like that year. That was a crazy year. Yeah.
And like, it'd be one thing to have it in one location, but to have it in two different locations like that, it's not like it's a bird where it like has big ears or something. It's a slime mold.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was just fun coincidence or what, but yeah, that was bizarre.
Interesting. So many mysteries.
I know, so too many.
And the coral slime mold, the white one, I read somewhere that is maybe not even a slime mold, like it's under debate.
I've heard that too. I don't have much of a opinion on that because it's like pretty nitty gritty why it isn't a slime mold, and then you could even get into take one step back because when you say the word slime mold, there's actually 3 different organisms that use that word. But I've heard that one about the coral one too. It might not be a slime mold. I don't remember what people were speculating it is, but it does behave pretty differently than the other ones. It looks pretty different. So
it does, yeah. And it doesn't. You can't preserve that one either. I mean, you can preserve it, but it just kind of collapses in on itself and dries out.
Yeah, just the kind of like white little crust after a minute. Yeah.
Which is so disappointing because it's so cool.
It's so cool. But I've never seen the one where it kind of is similar, but it's more of like a honeycomb. I've never seen that one. I want to see that one.
I've seen both kinds up here. And they look very different too. So like, is that even the same species? Maybe it's different.
It probably isn't. It probably shouldn't be. I don't know. Just throwing that out there. Someone describe that, please. Someone has to do it. I had a friend who he's really into lichens, and he's described like 6 or 7 new species, and he does not sound happy about that. He's like, "Someone how to do it." I'll do it. I know someone has to do it. So
Lichens are hard too. It's like they're almost even harder than slime molds because I studied those
oh
too,
yeah.
and mosses are even harder than that. So
Oh yeah. He does bryophytes too. Yeah, Moss is. Yeah, he's an expert on those. So cool. But is he happy? He's probably happy about it. Someone else.
sometimes, yeah. um, so what's your? I want to know what your favorite slime mold is. Do you have a favorite?
Gosh.
Pick a favorite child.
I know. Um I almost want to say going back to the white one, the coral slime mold, which we were speculating it might not even be a slime mold. I just love how that one looks. I love how abundant it can be, where it kind of carpets the lawn. It's a really fun one to show people because of how it's not robust, but it's for people who don't want to like get down on their hands and knees, for weird people who don't want to get down on their hands and knees with a hand lens. That one's still pretty visible and pretty cool. And I do like the dog vomit one for the same reason. Heart favorite is really hard. And I like all the pink Assyria ones too, the little cotton candies. So cute. Those are just adorable.
And they're a lot. I mean, they come in lots of different shapes too. I've seen bright yellow ones too.
Yeah, yellow and white ones and the pink ones, and yeah.
With like cotton candy.
Yeah, they're so cute. And they have the spiral, not spiral, like the bundles of cotton candy.
Yeah, like tasty.
Haven't eaten that one.
Are there any that you haven't seen that you really want to see?
The pretzel one. Oh my gosh, haunts me. I looked on iNaturalist, and I don't think anyone in the West Coast had seen it, and that kind of blew my mind.
Huh.
But also, it could have just been no one's made an observation on iNaturalist, which is definitely likely to happen. I want to see the pretzel one so bad.
I do too, and it's a weird one too. It doesn't look like the other slime molds.
No, not at all. So it has like its fruiting body is sort of this rope like pretzel shape, and then as it matures, that rope like shape gets all fuzzy with spores, but it still maintains that pretzel-y. So crazy.
So people might have seen it, they just don't know what they're looking at.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. It drives me crazy to think about if I've ever walked past it in my life. I might have.
Well, I know, like when I first started studying slime molds for my book, I looked at my pictures and I had pictures of them, but I didn't know that they were slime molds. So, like, yeah, we see things that are like, what is that? I'm gonna take a picture of it because it's weird, and then we don't actually know. So it's very possible that somebody out there has a picture of a pretzel slime mold from the West Coast and they don't know it. So
yeah, totally.
If you've seen it, put it on iNaturalist.
Yes, please. DM me on Twitter.
Because it's weird to think that like slime molds, the spores are out there like circling the atmosphere all around the world. Like, why wouldn't they be here? Why wouldn't? I'm like, and maybe there's one that's like a tropical one that has certain like moisture requirements or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but and that's another mystery is like how little we know about what they need to pop up and to grow and succeed. Yeah. Or maybe the slime, that one made like a tree that we don't commonly have over here. I don't know.
Or certain bacteria, I guess.
That's interesting. Yeah. I don't know. I want to see that. Yeah. I will get on a plane and fly to it if.
So speaking of planes, I wanted to ask you also, do you like when you travel? Do you go look for slime molds too?
I do. I mean, I feel like I passively can't help it if I'm outside. I haven't been outside of California in a while though, but anytime I'm on a hike anywhere else, totally looking for them. I worked for a summer in Yosemite up in like the high country, and the slime molds were really different up there, and they hit really late in the season in like July, August. I saw some really distinct ones up there that I'd never seen here. So yeah, I am always looking for them and trying to get a little sliver of their story wherever I am.
There's a snow one, isn't there?
Ooh, maybe. I'm not sure. Like it grows under snow?
Yeah, like it comes out only like when the snow first starts to melt or something. Maybe
That's
I'm
cool.
thinking of something else, but there's like something in the back of my mind that's triggering when you said going up. Um, that there's a snow one. I'm not sure now. Maybe I made that up.
Sounds true to me.
um, is there any place you'd like to go? Because I'd love to go to Japan because of Minakata, and there's a museum about him. Um, that would be so cool to see. Do you want to tell people who he is?
I think you should. I don't know.
Actually,
I know the name. Yeah, I don't know too much about him.
so he was a Japanese. He was, I don't know what he was. He was everything. Like he drove elephants like in India or something, and he kind of like traveled the world doing all kinds of odd things, and ended up in England, copying books from the British Museum for some reason. I don't know why. And I speculate that when he was there, he met Julia Molester, because she started corresponding with him when he went back to Japan. So I suspect. I don't know that she actually met him, but she named a species after him, and he sent her species from Japan. But he was like this kind of weird nerd who loved everything, but he got really like obsessed into slime molds in Japan, and he started collecting them and identifying them, and became kind of like this cult icon in Japan. So much so that like there's a whole museum for him now, and he even gave a presentation to the Emperor of Japan, because the Emperor had seen something he had written, I think, and it was the first time the Emperor had ever asked like for an audience or somebody to present, like a common person to present to him. And
Whoa.
so Minakata actually gave him a presentation on slime molds, and then the Emperor went on to become interested in slime molds. And then he corresponded with Julia Molester back in England. The Emperor did, and then she named it, I think, a species after him too. So it's just this really interesting dynamic of this guy who just traveled the world because he liked to just be weird. And I think that's like a lot about slime molds. It says a lot about slime molds because I think people who study them are a bit weird because slime molds are a bit weird. And I just love that all these like naturalists who don't have any like professional background have made such a big impact on the world of slime molds.
That's true.
So I'd love to go to Japan and see his museum and look for slime molds in his honor.
That would be so cool. I knew his name, but I really didn't know that whole story. That's awesome.
And there's a lot about him. And there's a lot he wrote, but it's never been translated into English. So I'd love to.
That's you. That's your job now.
I'm very minimal Japanese.
We'll get there.
I'll get there in maybe like 20 years.
Yeah, we have time.
So is there anywhere else you'd like to go to explore slime molds?
Sarah, do you know Sarah Lloyd?
Yeah, I've got her book right here too.
Yeah, she's made me want to go to Tasmania
Yeah.
for many reasons, but I would love to go to Tasmania. Yeah, and I'd also love to see somewhere in Europe for slime mold specifically. I'm not too picky where. Maybe somewhere in the Alps or something. See what's over there. Yeah.
Go on a worldwide slime mold tour. How fun would that be?
I wish. Yeah. Probably make it happen.
I mean, all you gotta do is send this to a publisher and expand it, and go travel the world and take pictures and write the ultimate guide, the common guide, the Julia Molester guide to slime molds.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Yeah, get it for real published because it is self-published. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
You're putting ideas in my head.
Let's see. What I wanted to also ask you: what is the most surprising one that you found, or exciting even?
I think there's one I wrote the description of it in the book. It's Paradiache. I hate saying these out loud. Something. And what was really surprising is that there were only 7 other accounts of it existing in the world ever. And the more I thought about it, I don't think it's because it's rare. I think it's just because no one's looking. And it's not a specifically like really pretty one. It's kind of this brown puddle. I don't want to say puddle. It's like brown plasmodia that kind of comes into some dark brown, very small, very short sporangia. And I think you could so easily walk by it. It doesn't like have those bright colors that capture you like some other ones. And that was really surprising to see that there were only 7 other accounts of it ever. that was really fun to find. And then number 8 in Santa Cruz.
That's amazing. I mean, yeah, that's really amazing. It's so cool. It's like that's the slime molds offer that chance, like discover something new or be one of the few that have seen it and like learn more about it. It's just a whole world. Like there's so much we could learn.
Yeah, which is so exciting, but also overwhelming, but in a really fun way. But like, oh my gosh, there's so much we don't know, and you think like we know the world pretty well at this point, but we so don't. Like, it's not just slime molds. There's so much we're learning.
Right, and like there's a competition between what do we know more of the deep sea or like the moon or whatever. Like, well, how about our forest?
I know, really, yeah.
Like slime molds, hello.
They're right here.
So have slime molds led you to other interests in nature?
I think they've grounded my interest in nature. I don't know if they've led me to other things. I think just them being something I'm so stoked on and making the time and effort to go out and see them, just putting me in nature frequently, which I really appreciate. I have a lot of other nature interests, but it's definitely, this one is the one that like hit me the hardest. But you know, when I'm out there, I'm seeing the birds and the inverts and plants and stuff, and it's just nice. It's my pull.
Right. That's great. Like everybody has something. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people have that. A lot of naturalists have that thing, that one thing, and that thing leads to other things. Because it's like you can't look at it in isolation. It's like slime molds exist in a community. So then you do get the inverts, and then you're going to hear the birds whether you want to or not, and you're going to learn about the trees because that's what they're growing on, and it's just like this whole interconnected, fascinating web. So, yeah, it's like being a naturalist, you don't have to like know everything, but having that one thing or even multiple things that get you out to go look and explore, it's just so wonderful. Well, that's great. On that note, I think that's a good place to end. This has been so much fun talking about slime molds. I could talk for another hour easily.
I know. Well, thank you so much. This has been a ton of fun.
And I will wait for your next book to, expanded edition. Every couple of years you can expand it, like a few species. And
I really could.
Eventually it'll be like Julia Lister. Have you seen Julia Lister's book?
I've seen illustrations she's done online, but I haven't seen the book.
I think, let me see if I can grab it. When I finished writing my first book, this is my present to myself. So I actually bought, this is the 3rd edition, because she wrote 3 editions. The first was with her father, and then when he died, she updated it 2 more times. So it's like the actual, and it's got all the, the notes and stuff in the front, but then the back has all of her illustrations.
That's so cool.
All of them. And yeah, I love this book. And you can find the whole thing online, and some of them are in color. In the if you look up the Biodiversity Heritage Library, the whole thing is scanned online. So
that's so cool.
Yeah, yes, you can scan, you can like look through. Oh, I think I just saw the pretzel one. I think I lost it. No, I think I lost it. But yeah, it's like she did this. Like her and her father, who were not professionals, they were naturalists, and they just love slime molds, and so they created this whole. I mean, look how big it is. A very comprehensive look on all the slime molds at the time.
That's so cool. Maybe when I finish my next edition, I'll buy myself that.
Get your own copy. Yeah, I mean, it's not outrageously expensive. It's not like thousands of dollars or anything. So.
Okay.
I think it was like $100, so it's a decent reward. My prized possession.
Oh, that's so cool.
So I'll look forward to your version of this.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I had a wonderful time.
Good. I'm so happy. Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
You too. Goodbye.
Bye.